I'm not trying to start anything, but
Oh,
this brings me to the streak and Brock Lesnar beating Undertaker. Both are already made. So in a case like that, what do you think about that?
I don't know why that happened. And I've never talked to Undertaker about it. I've never asked him. Don't know the story behind it. That was above my pay grade. I had no idea. It was my personal opinion that if anybody deserved to have a streak not be broken, it was the Undertaker.
The Undertaker.
For everything he's done for that company. The time he was working wearing the Phantom of the Opera mask because he had a crushed orbital, that was my opinion. You're not starting anything, but I'm a big fan of Brock. We work closely together with Bobby and with Omos, and, you would bring me whiskey. So in that deal, and obviously, Taker's a pro. He did it, and if anybody could have said, no, I'm not doing it, Taker was definitely one that could have done that. So you got some guys that, will have a little temper tantrum and, get upset, or as we say, they have the boo-boo face. There's one guy, I like him a lot, so I won't say his name, but I was really disappointed in how he reacted when he found out he had to lose a match. And the situation, he was really upset that, he had to lose. And I was like, dude, this is pro wrestling. Like, we all have to lose at some point. It's your job to lose. And, and you have some guys, if they have enough cachet, that go, nope, I'm not doing it. And, whoever the boss is has to go and talk to them and try to reason with them. And, some people have that kind of cachet where, if you're a Brock Lesnar or an Undertaker or, famously Stone Cold Steve Austin when they wanted him to lose to Brock. If you have enough, the gravitas, if you're a big enough box office star, you can say no. And then the promoter either has to deal with it or come up with a way to persuade you to do it. Sometimes it takes more money. If I recall correctly, Jeff Jarrett, when he put China over, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think Jeff Jarrett made an extra 6 figures on that. I think he said, okay, I'll do it, but I want this much money to do it, and I hope I'm telling that correctly. I think that's correctly. I don't want to misquote Jeff, but I'm pretty sure that's how it went down. And then there are other stories throughout wrestling history of guys who didn't want to put somebody over and charged a hefty price to do it, And typically, I'm at a point in my career where, there are certain guys that I don't have a problem losing to. But there are certain people that just because of where I'm at in my career and where they're at, like, no, man, I'm not, dude, you never kicked out of the Undertaker's choke slam.
Right.
But then I also understand that there are some young guys that, and I learned this from Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho campaigned for me to beat him one day in a match. And Chris Jericho said, it doesn't hurt me to lose to you, but it does a lot for you to beat me. And he campaigned for me to win. And I learned that, and they're like, okay, yeah, there are certain, like when I was at MLW with MJF, we had a match, I put MJF over. And he reminds me of that periodically, and it didn't hurt me. And where he was at his time in his career, coming up, it was a really good win for him. And that's the professionalism. So the guys who don't want to lose, sometimes they have a legitimate gripe and saying, no, I don't want to lose this one, man. It doesn't make sense. But at the end of the day, we all have a job. When you go to work, if your boss tells you, hey, man, empty the trash.
All right.
You either empty the trash
or
you punch out.
Yeah, right on.
And that's kind of what it comes down to. So it's a matter of professionalism. You want to have a boo-boo face and you want to complain and have a tantrum and, okay, you're not being a pro. There's lots of times that professionals feel like, I shouldn't lose this match, but this is what the boss wants, and this is how the game goes. So that's kind of how that works.
Right on.
Hold on, we got to do a toast, man. One time, for those of us who like the good stuff, I gotta tell you, I'm really digging Devil's River. Dave, we gotta have a talk. That's how it tastes.